I still remember the way my stomach dropped when those words left her mouth. "You're just his second choice. You know that, right?" Madison's voice was sharp, cutting through the noise of the campus coffee shop like a knife. I was sitting across from her, my hands wrapped around a lukewarm cup of coffee, trying to process what she'd just said about Jake. Madison had been Jake's girlfriend for 2 years before they broke up last semester. She was everything I wasn't: tall, confident, and beautiful. Blonde, effortlessly popular, the kind of girl who commanded attention just by walking into a room. And here I was, plain Emma from small-town Ohio, wearing my favorite oversized sweater that probably cost less than her designer purse. "What do you mean?" I managed to ask, my voice barely above a whisper. The coffee shop suddenly felt too warm, too crowded. Students chatted around us, completely oblivious to the fact that my world was potentially crumbling. She leaned forward, her perfectly manicured nails tapping against the wooden table. "Jake and I dated for 2 years. 2 years, Emma! You think he just forgot about all of that? You're convenient, that's all. Someone to keep him company until he figures out what he really wants." I felt my cheeks burn with embarrassment and anger. Jake and I had been dating for 6 months now, and while I'd always known about Madison, it was impossible not to on a campus this size. I'd never felt like I was competing with her ghost. Jake had never made me feel that way. "That's not true," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, doubt began creeping in. Was I really just a placeholder? A temporary distraction while he got over his real relationship? Madison's smile was cold, calculated. "Oh, honey, you really don't see it, do you? Why do you think he never posts pictures of you two together? Why hasn't he introduced you to his family? Face it, you're not girlfriend material. You're just somebody, filling a void." The worst part wasn't her words. It was the tiny voice in my head that whispered she might be right. Jake was popular, handsome, came from money. His family lived in one of those pristine Connecticut suburbs where everyone had perfect lawns and luxury cars. Meanwhile, I worked 3 part-time jobs just to afford textbooks and ramen noodles. But then I remembered something that made Madison's words feel less sharp, less true. 2 weeks ago, Jake had done something that no second choice gets invited to. I straightened up in my chair, meeting her gaze directly. "If I'm just his second choice," I said, my voice gaining strength, "then why am I the only one who got invited to his graduation?" For the first time since she'd sat down, Madison's confident expression faltered. Madison's face went pale, and for a moment, she looked genuinely shocked. The carefully constructed mask of superiority slipped, revealing something raw and vulnerable underneath. She quickly recovered, but not before I caught that flash of pain in her eyes. That's not possible," she stammered, her voice losing its earlier venom. "His graduation is next month. It's a family-only ceremony." I felt a surge of confidence I hadn't experienced in months. Jake had asked me to be his guest just last weekend, explaining how meaningful it was to him that I'd be there for such an important moment. His parents were flying in from Connecticut, and he wanted me to meet them properly, not just the casual introductions we'd had over video calls. "Actually, it is possible," I said, surprised by how steady my voice sounded. "Because, unlike what you seem to think, Jake and I talk about important things, real things. He told me about how nervous he is about starting his master's program, how he's worried about disappointing his dad, how he wants to make a difference in environmental law. Madison's jaw tightened. Anyone could know those things about him. Could they? I challenged. Do you know about his recurring nightmares about the camping accident when he was 12? Do you know that he still sleeps with a small light on because complete darkness makes him panic? Do you know that he volunteers at the animal shelter every Saturday morning because his childhood dog, Max, died while you two were together, and you told him he was being ridiculous for grieving just a pet? Each revelation hit Madison like a physical blow. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the way her face crumpled with each detail I shared. These weren't things Jake advertised. They were intimate truths shared during late-night conversations, vulnerable moments when guards came down. The coffee shop seemed to fade around us as Madison processed what I'd said. Other students continued their conversations, completely unaware of the emotional battlefield our table had become. He never told me about the nightmares, she whispered, and for the first time, she sounded like a hurt 21-year-old instead of a calculating mean girl. Maybe, I said gently, that's because you never made him feel safe enough to share them. Madison looked down at her hands, her confidence completely shattered. We were together for 2 years. 2 years, and he never... I felt an unexpected wave of sympathy for her, despite everything she'd just put me through. I could see the pain she was carrying. Madison, why did you really come here today? What did you want to accomplish by telling me all this? She was quiet for a long moment, staring into her untouched latte. When she finally looked up, her eyes were glassy with unshed tears. I guess I thought if I could make you doubt him, doubt yourself, maybe he'd realize he made a mistake. Maybe he'd come back to me. Her voice cracked. I've been watching you two together for months, seeing how he looks at you, how he smiles when he talks about you. And it hurts, Emma. It really, really hurts. The honesty in her voice caught me off guard. I'd expected her to maintain her hostile facade, but instead, she was showing me something real and raw. For the first time since she'd approached my table, I saw Madison not as Jake's intimidating ex-girlfriend, but as someone who was genuinely hurting. I understand that it hurts, I said softly, but trying to sabotage what Jake and I have isn't going to bring him back to you. It's just going to make everyone miserable. She wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, smearing her mascara slightly. I know. God, I know that. But I don't know how to stop feeling like I lost the best thing that ever happened to me. I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Madison, can I ask you something? When you and Jake were together, did you ever feel like you had to be someone else around him? Like the real you wasn't good enough? She looked surprised by the question. What do you mean? I mean, did you ever feel like you were performing? Like you had to be the perfect girlfriend, the one who never showed weakness or vulnerability or fear? Something shifted in her expression, and she nodded slowly. All the time. Jake came from this perfect family, had this perfect life planned out. I felt like I had to match that. I couldn't let him see me struggle with my parents' divorce or my anxiety about my future. I thought if I showed him any cracks, he'd realize I wasn't worth his time. But that's exhausting, I said. Relationships aren't supposed to be performances. They're supposed to be safe spaces where you can be yourself, even the messy parts. Madison was quiet for a moment, processing what I'd said. Is that what you have with him? That kind of safety? I nodded. It took time to build that trust, but yes, Jake makes me feel like I can be completely myself around him. My awkward, anxious, overthinking self. And somehow he loves me for it, not despite it. The word love hung in the air between us. I'd never said it out loud before, not even to Jake. But sitting here with Madison, I realized it was true. I was in love with him, and more importantly, I was learning to love myself through his eyes. Maybe that's what I did wrong, Madison said quietly. I was so focused on being what I thought he wanted that I never let him see who I really was. And maybe that's why he never felt safe enough to share his vulnerabilities with me. I felt a genuine sadness for her. Madison, you deserve to be with someone who loves the real you. Not a performance, not a perfect version, but you, flaws and all. She laughed bitterly. Easy to say when you're the one who got the guy. I didn't get Jake, I said firmly. We chose each other. Every day, we choose to be honest with each other, to support each other, to work through our problems together. That's not something you win or lose. It's something you build. For the first time since she'd sat down, Madison looked at me with something that wasn't hostility or manipulation. It was respect, maybe even a hint of gratitude. You're right, she said. Her voice barely audible over the ambient noise of the coffee shop. I spent so much energy trying to be perfect for him that I forgot how to just be myself. And when we broke up, instead of learning from that, I've been stuck in this cycle of trying to tear down what makes him happy now. I watched as she processed this realization, seeing the exact moment when something clicked for her. The tension in her shoulders relaxed, and she seemed to deflate slightly, as if she'd been holding her breath for months. Emma, I owe you an apology, she continued. What I said about you being his second choice, about not being girlfriend material, none of that was true. I said it because I was jealous and hurt, but that doesn't make it okay. I felt a weight lift off my chest that I hadn't even realized I'd been carrying. Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know. She grabbed a napkin and cleaned up her smeared makeup. Can I ask you something now? How do you do it? How do you make it look so easy to just be yourself? The question surprised me. Madison had always seemed so self-assured, so confident in her own skin. You think it's easy for me? I laughed softly. Madison, I spend half my time convinced that Jake's going to wake up one day and realize he could do better. I'm constantly worried that I'm not smart enough, pretty enough, successful enough. But you don't let that stop you from being real with him. No, I guess I don't. Because I learned that hiding who I am doesn't protect me from getting hurt. It just guarantees that any love I receive isn't really for me. I paused, thinking about how to explain it better. My mom used to tell me that the right person will love your weird laugh, your bad hair days, and your tendency to cry during commercials. The wrong person will make you feel like you need to hide those things. Madison nodded slowly. Jake never made me feel like I needed to hide anything. I did that to myself. And that's something you can learn from for your next relationship, I said gently. She was quiet for a moment, then looked at me with curious eyes. What's he like now? I mean, I see him around campus, but what's he really like when it's just you two? I smiled, thinking about Jake. The way he still got excited about finding a good book at the used bookstore. How he'd text me pictures of dogs he saw on campus. How he'd bring me soup when I was stressed about exams. "He's kind," I said simply. "Not just nice, but genuinely kind. He remembers small things, like how I prefer my coffee or that I get anxious before big presentations. He's still ambitious and driven, but he's also learned to slow down and appreciate simple moments." Madison listened intently, and I could see her comparing this version of Jake to the one she'd known. "He sounds happy," she said finally. "He is. And I think part of that happiness comes from being able to be vulnerable with someone who won't judge him for it." We sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, both lost in our own thoughts. Finally, Madison gathered her things and stood up. "Emma, thank you for being honest with me, instead of just telling me what I wanted to hear. I think I needed this conversation more than I realized." I smiled up at her. We all need reality checks sometimes. She hesitated at the edge of the table. "For what it's worth, I think Jake made a good choice. You're nothing like what I expected." And that's definitely a compliment. As she walked away, I felt something shift inside me. A newfound confidence, a deeper understanding of my own worth, and a clearer picture of what Jake and I had built together. My phone buzzed with a text from Jake. "Hey, beautiful. How's your study session going? Can't wait to see you tonight." I smiled as I typed back. "Just had an interesting conversation. I'll tell you about it later." "Can't wait to see you too." For the first time in months, I felt completely secure in who I was and where I stood in Jake's life. A few hours later, I was curled up on Jake's couch in his small apartment, telling him about my encounter with Madison. He listened without interrupting, his arm wrapped around me, occasionally running his fingers through my hair. "I can't believe she said those things to you," he said when I finished, his voice tight with anger. "Emma, you know none of that was true, right? You're not my second choice. You're not anyone's second choice." I nestled closer to him, breathing in the familiar scent of his cologne mixed with the coffee he'd been drinking while studying. "I know that now, but for a moment, she almost had me convinced. It's scary how insecurity can make you doubt things you know to be true." Jake pulled back slightly so he could look at me. "Can I tell you something? The reason Madison and I broke up wasn't because we fell out of love. It was because we were never really in love to begin with. We were in love with the idea of each other, with how we looked together, with the version of ourselves we thought we were supposed to be." He paused, choosing his words carefully. "With you, everything is real. When you laugh at my terrible jokes, when you cry during movies, when you get so excited about your environmental science projects that you talk for an hour straight, that's when I feel most like myself. You don't love an idea of me, Emma. You love me." I felt tears prick my eyes, but they were good tears this time. "I do love you, Jake. I was afraid to say it before, but I do. I love your ambition and your kindness, and yes, even your terrible jokes." He laughed, pressing a kiss to my forehead. "I love you too. Have for months now. I was just waiting for the right moment to say it." "And this is the right moment?" I asked, looking around his cluttered apartment with textbooks scattered everywhere and yesterday's dishes still in the sink. "This is perfect," he said, pulling me closer, "because it's real. It's us. 2 weeks later, I stood in the audience at Jake's graduation ceremony, wearing the blue dress he'd bought me for the occasion. His parents, who I'd finally met the night before, were seated beside me. His mother kept whispering about how happy Jake seemed, how much he'd talked about me in their phone calls. When Jake walked across the stage to receive his diploma, he caught my eye in the crowd and smiled. That genuine, unguarded smile that had made me fall in love with him in the first place. In that moment, I realized that Madison had been wrong about everything. I wasn't his second choice or a temporary placeholder. I was his teammate, his partner, his equal. After the ceremony, as we celebrated with his family at a nearby restaurant, I saw Madison across the room with her own family. She caught my eye and gave me a small wave. Not friendly exactly, but acknowledging. Civil. She looked different somehow, lighter, as if our conversation had helped her let go of something heavy she'd been carrying. That night, as Jake and I walked across campus under the stars, he stopped suddenly and took my hands in his. "Emma, I want you to know something. When I look at my future, law school, my career, building a life, I can't imagine any of it without you. You're not part of my backup plan. You are the plan." I stood on my tiptoes and kissed him, tasting the sweetness of champagne and the promise of tomorrow. "Good," I whispered against his lips, "because you're my plan too." As we continued walking, I thought about how much had changed since that afternoon in the coffee shop. I'd learned that love isn't about being someone's first choice or second choice. It's about being chosen every day. The campus was quiet around us, but I'd never felt more alive, more certain of my place in the world. I wasn't Jake's second choice after all. I was his only choice, just as